Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. Just a little bit about how this seminar came about. A couple of months ago, walking into church, one of the first times we came to in-person church, and had this little chat with Flo, talking about, gee, I wonder what the new normal is going to be like, you know? And so I said, well, I'm on the seminar committee, let's make that happen. So, so here we are.
Right away.
Yeah, so we've come up with this list of questions for you to ponder, and the way we'll proceed is, if any of them inspire you to respond, that's what you do. We're not going to go through them step by step because, anyway, some of them will mean something to you, and some of them just won't. Yeah, so we're going to begin with a 2-minute video that Jeff came up with that I think might kind of get us in the mood to think about what it's been like pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and how it's going to be after. And another introductory thing is something that Jeff played for me in the car on the way over here that is so appropriate. It was it a school teacher, Jeff, who wrote this poem and posted it on Facebook or something? And Oprah Winfrey was quoting it, and Deepak Chopra was quoting it, and we need to hear it.
If we're quiet, we can.
And the people stayed home, and they read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being, and were still. And they listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. That is so beautiful.
That is so beautiful, and I would like to have some time here for everybody to share, but I'm just going to talk from my heart for a minute and share with you some of the observations that I made. That admonition in the poem about learning to be still resonated so strongly with me because I felt I was never still before. I never took the time to stop and focus and do things that, the introverted things that I had no time for when I was busy being extroverted and doing my outreach and all that. And so I think that that was one of the things, that was one of the gifts that this pandemic gave to me. And it kind of, the whole story that, you know, the whole idea of coming to yourself and focusing on your personal growth, your spiritual growth, your emotional growth, was a very important part of the beginning of the pandemic. And now, as we emerge, it's been a focus of mine, and it's something that, it's sort of like my axis that I'm going to rotate around for the time being. I was inspired by a seminar that Talia gave during retreat that I was privileged to attend, where she talked about what passions were included. First, we went through a litany of what did you lose. And so I listed a bunch of friends that had passed during the pandemic, and a bunch of things that I had to let go of, things that I enjoyed doing that were no longer possible, and things that people that I love had to suffer through deprivations, etc. And then, she turned it around immediately and said, what does this show about what you value? What are your passions? And so that's a little bit about what these questions are that we put together for your personal use or for your sharing if you wish. So the first one is sort of like, what are you missing? What have you lost? What have you given up on? And then again, that second question, which was of my devising based on what Talia was talking about, is what are those passions that were thwarted by by the pandemic? And then again, with gifts, trying to use hope as a possibility, as an impetus for moving forward with growth. So if any of you have things that you would like to share, these are all questions that you can take home with you and work on perhaps, and or share with us this morning. Jeff,
Can I
do you
add
want to?
something?
Yeah, sure.
I forgot to say that folks at home that are with us can put responses in the chat. And Tristan, when they come, would you let me know? Great, thank you.
How many people do we have on chat?
Currently about 5.
Okay. Anybody want to add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess we can start with number 1.
Yeah, sure.
About the things you missed. Tactile, like shaking hands with people, or the gesture of just touching their arm or something. I became very self-conscious, of course, because I'm at least 6 feet away.
I'm a
So-
hugger. Oh my God. Yeah, I felt like I'm gonna hug myself because I need this, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right along with that was what I miss so much is contra dancing, which is just that, touching people and being close to people and mixing that with the joy and jubilation of the dance and the music.
I'm going to jump to what I miss now about the pandemic is I did Zoom meetings with my 4 grandchildren who are now teenagers and have no time for grandma. I mean, then they were stuck at home, so
Yeah,
yay,
that's
let's
right.
Zoom with grandma. Now they're too busy.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I would have to echo Celia, although I started Zooming with my best friends from high school, and we're still continuing to do that. And unfortunately, my mother had to go into a nursing home 2 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. And she actually just got COVID a week ago, asymptomatic though, basically.
yeah.
But my brothers and I have a Zoom meeting with her once a week, and she's not real with it, so she kind of just sits and listens after we get the weather report. But I've talked to my brothers more in the last 2 years than I have in years and years and years, because we see each other every week for 40 minutes until the Zoom cuts out.
Yeah, we had a friend that right before COVID moved to Denver. We've been, friends with since our kids were little, and we started Zooming with her and our other friends here once a week, just because we couldn't get together. And it was really good for her because she moved where she didn't know anybody, and then COVID hit. And so now we're keeping that up once a month instead of every week. But it's kind of a lot of people, I think, have done that, kind of gotten together with people at Zoom that they would not have before. So that's something good.
Yeah, that came out of that, and thanks to Zoom, I now Zoom with about 6 or 7 women that I lived in the dorms with 53 years ago. It's been great.
Right here in UCG, attendance at our racial justice meetings has almost doubled because people don't have to come here to campus to meet, and so that has increased our participation, and so many things at work as well, where people can attend remotely. It just seems like people are meeting more.
And I don't think we're gonna lose some of that because you don't need to meet in person,
Right.
to get business done.
Business done, right?
To build relationships,
Dancing,
you need to meet in
yes.
person,
Yes.
but,
Yeah, but with Zoom, people can turn off the video. I mean, I'm on a board of our condominiums, HOA, and I think in the last 2 years, there's one person whose face I have not seen because he claims he has no camera on his computer. So that is one thing that's a problem. When you meet together, you see people's faces and then how they're reacting, and you get some feedback that you can't necessarily get from the Zoom.
Well, it does sort of kind of, the lurkers can be
Yes.
more lurky, right? But and again, maybe he would be intimidated attending in person, and just the fact that he's listening in and lurking, that might benefit him at least, if he's not sharing with others. At least that may be, something that's what he can do, and
Yeah.
that's the best you can expect.
I brought along something as a reminder of this situation that the church has provided. My family used to we would get together at the big holidays, and one of the activities was to work on a puzzle. I'd totally forgotten about that because it was so long ago. And when the church started doing this, I thought, this is so great, because it would be good to take some time out to do something for pleasure. So I have, over the period of time, done a couple of them. They always have to be no more than 500 pieces. Because I still consider I don't have time for this. But it was a really great idea. I really think it
That
was
whole admonition to learn to be still is so, and this is a great way to do it. You can, something that you can do by yourself, or something that you can do with family members, and, you know, people in your pod that are, that you feel safe being with without a mask, or the people that you're forced to live with, depending on how you look at it.
We've moved out to the village in recent months, and they actually have a couple of tables set up with puzzles. You can go and stop and work a little bit if you want to, maybe two of you are working, or just start on you and yourself and leave it there for other people to come and finish. I think it's sort of a neat idea. Sometimes you'll see a couple of people working together, but usually it's just one.
I think Jeff and I have done hundreds of puzzles. And I just, before the lockdown, I had been involved in like 4 or 5 different organizations, volunteering, and, you know, going out dancing and going to dinner. And my introvert self was I didn't realize how exhausted I was until the lockdown. And then it was quiet and I didn't have to go anywhere. So that's a different take on, on all of that. But what I learned is maybe I don't want to be involved in quite so many things, and, you know, just kind of watch it so that I don't get burnt out again.
Trained, right.
Yeah.
How about gifts? What kind of gifts that you had that perhaps were latent before the pandemic that you've developed, and what muscles have come out with the COVID experience?
Learning how to Zoom. Big one.
Are you an expert now?
I know where the camera is, I know where the microphone is.
Well, I would say that I missed singing like desperately.
Yeah.
I was in 2 different choirs and a small group and the ukulele club, and all of those involved singing and music and all, and it was like nothing, right? I mean, that's the worst thing you can do is singing, right? So I think in December, maybe November, someone that I had known from ukulele and I had invited to be in the UCG choir called me and said, you know, I think if we stood really far apart and wore masks, we could sing this song that I have that's for 3 parts. And it was for Christmas. And it was her favorite song, and I said, okay, I have a really long porch. so we stood on the porch like 6 or 8 feet apart, 3 of us, and it was a workaround, and it was wonderful. And from that, we've now formed a permanent trio that we sing. I bet we have 40 songs that we've got together, so that was a good way to figure out a lack and fill it with something. A gift, for sure.
I think I developed my a cappella singing a little more.
Well, that's what this was.
Anybody else?
I learned to be still.
Yeah.
That was kind of hard. But I learned to just try to be still and see what thoughts would rise when I'm not so busy doing things.
I went to Mary's house and got some sourdough starter and learned how to make my own bread. That was kind of cool, and something that I had always wanted to do. I also sent away to this place in Berkeley. I was visiting Berkeley on business, and went to a cheese making workshop, and that company during this was before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, the company started mailing out these little packages, like kits for making goat cheese. And so I ordered one of those, and no, actually it was, I ordered a goat cheese one, but I also made a little brie. Like that was what the workshop was. And so my daughters and I got together and we made our own little hockey puck of brie. And that was like so much fun and so easy. Well, not really that easy, but lots of
Doesn't sound that easy.
Lots of stuff, and you sort of have to like cultivate it and dry it.
And nurture it, right?
Nurture it, yes. Yeah, so it was like this little, like a pet rock, only it was like you could eat it. That was a lot of fun. So, anybody else have some skills that they developed? I'm a cheese maker and a bread maker now, so hit me up.
Yeah, I learned bread baking also. A friend gave me the recipe for, you make up the dough and keep it in the fridge for up to 2 weeks whenever you want to.
Yeah.
Make a loaf, you take it out and bake it.
Rise it and bake it.
Bake
Right. Was that a sourdough?
No,
A regular
maybe I
wheat
bread
bread?
some of your sourdough.
Connection.
I gave it up because we're coming out now and I just go to the bakery. Anything, anybody new, like learning new recipes or stretching that kind of thing? We had musical gifts that were encouraged. Anybody on chat?
Well,
No?
we have somebody.
No, okay.
We subscribed to one of the CSAs and drove down, picked up our. There was stuff in there I'd never thought about buying to cook, and so, okay. So I had a lot of fun looking up recipes and trying different things. Lately, we discovered that the little baby turnips aren't too bad.
Dump lots of curry powder on them.
I got really good at doing the puzzles, the 1,000-piece ones, and I hate to waste my time on anything less, but I find it's a place where I can meditate, because it's just my thoughts and me, and it's something soothing about all that touching, and the shape and the colors, and so you're building that eye vision stuff, but meanwhile I can be quiet. Because I'm not very good. I was always a crafter or something. You know, I couldn't just sit couldn't sit and watch TV without doing something. But a puzzle is just enough of it has an end point that I can see, where some of the knitting stuff goes on too long.
Well, in the first part of the internet, when the shutdown was the hardest, the first part of the pandemic, our internet went out for about 4 months. They couldn't figure out what it was. So we were double isolated, not having either the internet or the connection with pandemic. But it was enough. You know, I discovered it was enough to be there and watch the birds and read. The library still, I went to the library. They delivered the books out to the car. And so I read and sat there and watched the birds. And without that connection, it was enough. But it's wonderful that it's back now.
Yeah, well, you realize that was a gift. But learning to be still and paying attention to nature. You know, I spent a lot more time outside because it's like, we've got to get some exercise and, and walk. I started swimming, and that was really helpful because I'm in my head when I'm swimming, and it's sort of like the laps just happen because I'm thinking and, focusing on that. And so it's,
Thank you to the city for setting up that swimming program during the pandemic.
I think it helps our government leaders also needed to learn how to develop these other things, and having, you know, people in government thinking creatively about how to solve these problems, how to overcome these obstacles, has improved the quality of life for a lot of us. The gap has widened, you know, with regard to justice and to dealing with issues of access to resources, but more people have stopped and been still and focused on those problems and solving them creatively, you know, so that's been a real positive thing.
Yeah, I noticed in our neighborhood, more people were out walking and everybody was home and more friendly. I mean, like people who I kind of knew where they lived maybe, but they're telling me about their latest Netflix series that they found and I'm telling them, and it was like more conversations outside walking in your neighborhood than I had had before.
Yeah, that's really true, and I think that experience had people more tolerant of a little bit of discomfort with the weather, you know, like meetings outside with jackets on, but, you know, they were fun and you can do that. I mean, it's not impossible. We don't have to be inside with the air conditioning or the heat or whatever. We can be outside, and I enjoyed that part of it so much.
So what you're talking about is sort of like, this is a challenge, this isolation is oppressive to me, so therefore I'm going to go over the threshold of intolerance that I have with these obstacles and, you know, put a jacket on and go outside. In your case, like, you know, I don't have time for all these neighbors walking their dogs. Well, that's all you have to do now. So get to know them, you know, and that sort of like put us over the hump
Yes,
to a certain
definitely.
extent.
Yeah, Flora, you mentioned the government trying to figure out ways to keep us entertained or in good shape, and something that, you know, with all these checks coming in from the IRS that I didn't really need, I had to figure out what to do with that extra money, and I gave it away, and I learned how much fun that is. It feels really good to be able to contribute to my favorite charities.
Mm-hmm. To make a difference with the surplus.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And there were more gatherings of people around fire pits and that type of thing, you know, which I love, so that was a positive.
There's a comment on the chat.
Oh, there's a chat, okay.
What about the bottom?
My husband gave me his camera and said, go. I have some really beautiful photos of birds and nature and rainbows over Gainesville that I never would have seen. So yeah, paying attention to the world around us, the sky above us, and we did a lot more stargazing and paying attention to these things. Of course, we were already looking at birds because of Helen, but the fact that there was a group of this young friend of ours just decided to put together a group called The Flock. And we go out, and women birders that are interested in like going on walks together. So we met at Bowling Bluff, and we walked around, and you get to know people, and you're outdoors, it's new people, and it's a lot of fun to sort of commune with nature and pay attention to what's around you, and even in your own backyard.
Or at Sweetwater.
Yes.
Oh my
we went to
gosh, how many
Sweetwater, too.
people were at Sweetwater over the,
There were a
yeah, I
lot
mean, I
of
loved how
people,
they managed to set it up so that you could walk without getting any close quarters, you know, like different entrance and all. It was, and boy, I saw a lot of people there I never saw out there before.
It'd be neat to see if the city could give you the numbers count of how many people were there during the last 2 years compared to before.
Well, it's been building every year, so.
Yeah, so that's hard.
I don't know
Hard
if you
to
would,
say if it's-
yeah, but I'm sure that there were more people that had never walked there before, but went there during the pandemic. Even my grandson, when he was out of school, he said, I had to get out of the house. I came to Sweetwater to do my homework, to do his work on Zoom. And he said, and I saw your car here. So we ran into him randomly at Sweetwater.
Yeah, I got to see a whole new part of my neighborhood. I live in the bed and breakfast district. And walking farther east there, all close to Waldo Road, it's amazing what was there that I'd never seen before.
So yeah, in the midst of all of the things that we're grieving, all the people that we're grieving, all the activities that we're grieving, we sort of like expanded our world a little bit, right? And came to a new understanding of ourselves and our neighbors and their dogs and birds, etc. So there are some good things. So what are you most looking forward to post-pandemic, that something that you really missed that you're still not doing perhaps, but that you're looking forward to getting back to?
Hugging people
routinely.
Wow, we've got lots going on. What, Mary?
I said hugging people routinely.
Hugging people, yes, absolutely, yes. I'm starting to do that, and it feels so good.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Health improvement.
Health improvement, right.
Cut down some on the stress of what we've been going through and continue to do.
Right.
Travel.
Travel, yes.
Dance.
Dance, okay, hugging, travel, dance.
Choirs.
What?
Choirs.
Choirs, yes.
Eating together.
Sing out, Louise. What's that?
Getting together in groups without masks.
Yeah.
Food not having to worry that you're around a bunch of unvaccinated people, which I love.
Eating indoors at a restaurant.
Oh.
And sharing food at church and with other groups, with people at work, and breaking bread with others that you love, that you've been deprived of their presence, so, yeah.
I think that Peggy was referring to like the health benefits of less stress. And as far as being around communities or people that I interact with, and they're so stressed, like grief, you mentioned that, and financial difficulties and other things. And I guess I'm a pretty empathetic person, so I pick up on that. So I'm looking forward to people being better off, healthier, less stressed.
Yeah, I think that I still have that level of anxiety that Mary Applin was kind of referring to. Like, I went to the memorial service for Margaret Boonstra, our community member, last night, and I walked into the Harn, and there was like, 300, 400 people in there, and they're all talking, and most people didn't have masks on, and I had that feeling of, ooh, and I didn't even want to walk in. I had to force myself to walk in, put my mask on, and I'm looking forward very much to not having that feeling when I'm entering a crowded room. Because it's horrible, and it causes your blood pressure and your, anxiety level.
I even get that feeling when I'm watching TV and there's a crowd.
Particularly early on.
Well, or I see, like a news report or something, and I'm like, oh, that had to happen before the pandemic. Nobody has a mask on,
No.
Yeah, or yeah.
So it's 11:10 in case anybody's
Oh,
going.
yeah. So we'll wrap up here, but any last comments? No?
Thank you all for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
Reminder,
Thank you.
I do need to exit, but I just wanted to touch on, I liked your Facebook, several Facebook posts.
Yes.
But I believe you were the one that said, something about the mindful Christianity.
Yeah.
Those were so good.
Oh, yeah, well, good, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'm not, I can't post things